Welcome to Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt of the Marquardt Law Firm at marquardtlawfirm.com.
Welcome back to Talk Law Radio. I'm Todd Marquardt, on the radio, on Facebook Live, on YouTube, on podcasts everywhere, and on talklawradio.com. Also on 9:30 a.m. The Answer. So you can find this information in any type of medium. If you're interested in learning about the law, stay tuned. Tell your friends. Go to YouTube, like and subscribe. We're talking about the federal funding freeze that happened just recently. And the reason why I'm still talking about it when other people think that it's been resolved is because there's a deeper issue that is that I'm worried about, and that's government power. And so I always like to bring it back to the Constitution, because that's the framework for this government that we live in. And I didn't hear anybody else say it except for Shannon. She found somebody who was talking about the structure of the federal government. We have three branches. We have the presidency, we have the legislature, the Congress, and we have the courts. And so having three branches of government is supposed to balance the power, right?
True that.
And so I'm not getting political here. I'm not saying whether I like President Trump or I don't. You can feel free. Shannon wants to know your comments on our Facebook Live. You can post your comments about what you like or what you don't like. I just want to talk about the law.
Yeah.
And so, because I'm not just worried about what's going on right now.
Right.
I'm worried about what's going to be happening 20 years from now.
That's how the law works. Yeah.
Right.
It builds on
We
itself.
want the structure to withstand everything that goes on from the day to day.
Definitely.
And so we have three branches of government for the balance of power. And we have, how many of you know that it's the House of Representatives that brings the budget? Well, I know that because I've been studying this government for a very long time.
Yeah.
But maybe not everybody knows that.
Or maybe you knew it and you were following the news cycle and something's happening every 5 seconds. So you hear about this and it just doesn't click right away. That,
well,
wait a minute, is that how this works?
And as I was preparing for this show, I was thinking Congress brings the budget, but they're not good at it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have a good budget. I mean, this has been going on for like maybe 16 years or something, where Congress is having a hard time passing a budget.
Yeah. Well, true. I mean,
it's their job. They're supposed to do it.
Uh-huh.
And so if they're not going to do their job, that's when other people start trying to do things.
Okay.
I mean, but the courts can't take money from the government and spend it.
Uh-huh.
But I guess the president has some power.
Well, we don't want the most efficient form of government. I mean, North Korea has a very efficient form of government.
Yeah.
You know, there's one guy.
With that. When people complain that the government doesn't get anything done,
right.
Usually I'm with you. I say, yes, that's a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, because your legislators, they represent you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you voted. It's the most direct way where your voice can be heard, the way the founding fathers intended, you know, up there in Washington.
We have a representative legislature.
Yeah. And they're going to, you know, debate and argue. And yeah, we probably don't want to see how the sausage is made. You know, it's not pretty, but we don't want the alternative where it's
right, because then you have the extreme policies of any which way happening and not a whole lot of deliberation.
Yeah. But I can hear people complaining that it is inefficient. I mean, that is a valid concern.
Right. So let me go back to the Office of Management and Budget that wrote an explanation of what it was really trying to accomplish with the memo, which was based on the executive orders. There were some questions, frequently asked questions. Is this a freeze on all federal financial assistance? No, the pause does not apply across the board. It is expressly limited to programs, projects, and activities implicated by the president's executive orders, such as ending DEI, the Green New Deal, and funding non-governmental organizations that I'm not going to let them say their opinion here. Is this a freeze on benefits to Americans like SNAP or student loans? You saw a video of somebody who thought they were losing their food stamps.
Right.
No, any program that provides direct benefits to Americans is explicitly excluded from the pause and exempted from this review process. In addition to Social Security and Medicare, already explicitly excluded in the guidance, mandatory programs like Medicaid and SNAP will continue without pause. So here's another one. Is the pause of federal financial assistance and impoundment?
Mm-hmm.
You asked about that because that's where Nixon was overruled by a law
Right.
about impoundment. No, it is not an impoundment under the Impoundment Control Act. It is a temporary pause to give agencies time to ensure that financial assistance conforms to the policies set out in the president's executive orders to the extent permitted by law. So they can always hide behind to the extent permitted by law.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a really good thing that they mentioned there. Another thing that would have made it better is if the memo and the explanation had mentioned discretionary spending.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's mandatory spending, then maybe there are these laws that cannot pause.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But if it's discretionary, by definition, it is something that you can pause.
Right. I don't remember seeing the discretionary or mandatory language in the.
They didn't.
Yeah.
But I think that if they had, it would have been more okay.
Okay.
That's just my theory. So we're talking about the federal funding freeze or pause or whatever you want to call it.
Right.
So there was one explanation of why Congress controls the purse.
Yeah.
That was an article that you sent me.
Yeah.
The House of Representatives, this is quoted from the Federalist 58. This was a discussion by the Founding Fathers about how the government should be structured.
Oh, okay.
So this is like when I was in college, this is what the cool kids would do, sit
Yeah.
down and talk
Yeah.
about the Federalist Papers.
Yeah, no, I can't wait. Yeah, why Congress? I've been wondering that.
Well, it had to be somebody
Right.
to,
I mean, I agree.
They just
That's a
wanted-
good choice.
one group to control the money and not give that to every branch.
Right.
But it says the House of Representatives cannot only refuse, but they alone can propose the supplies requisite for the support of government. They, in a word, hold the purse, that powerful instrument by which we behold in the history of the British Constitution an infant and humble representation of the people, gradually enlarging the sphere of its activity and importance, and finally reducing, as far as it seems to have wished, all the overgrown prerogatives of the other branches of the government. So is it supposed to control spending?
Mm-hmm. Right, yeah. And power.
That's right.
That whole checks and balance things.
Yeah. So there was a court case that issued a temporary restraining order on the pause. Now, I think it's easy to get confused when you're following the law and court cases, when there's this executive order that stops spending,
Yeah.
and then there's this court case that stops the stop.
Right. Yes. I remember that in school. Wait. The appellee and the appellant.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's turned back on, except that the spokesperson for the president, the press secretary, said that the president revoked the memo. So the executive orders are still in place, but the memo that said that there was going to be a pause, that's rescinded.
Okay.
And so there's one judge, I don't have his name in front of me, said that that was a distinction without a difference. That the executive order's purpose was still to stop funding DEI programs, for an example, or the Green New Deal. And the memo was going to stop that, stop the spending too. It was just a way of explaining how it was going to be done.
Right.
So if the memo is rescinded, then I think that court case is moot, because the court case only said that there was a temporary restraining order on carrying out the objectives of the memo.
Oh, well, but they might amend it.
Right. Yeah.
They could amend it because
they could amend their pleadings.
Yeah. I wonder if they thought that through. How interesting.
So we're not sure where this is going to end up.
Uh-huh.
I think that the purposes of the president are still there. You mentioned that during the break, that you had heard that this was going to be one of the objectives of President Trump's presidency, was to stop spending on certain programs.
Yeah.
And so it's not really a surprise.
Right.
Some people in the media said that they were surprised. Some people in government said that they were surprised, but maybe they should have known all along.
I could be wrong, but I
Okay.
think there's a lot of talk that it was very well planned and
Okay.
researched since even the first administration.
All right. Well, we're going to have to take another break. We'll come back for one more segment. We'll talk about some other things that are going on in the news that you might be interested in. So stay tuned.
And you'll have another joke.
Maybe.
This has been Talk Law Radio with attorney Todd Marquardt, brought to you by the Marquardt Law Firm. You can learn more at marquardtlawfirm.com. And be sure to listen to the full Talk Law Radio show Saturday mornings at 11 on 9:30 a.m. The Answer.
Each week, attorney Todd Marquardt talks about the law. His mission with the Talk Law Radio show and podcast is to help you discover your legal issue blind spots. In the beginning, God had one law. Don't eat from the fruit of that tree. Then came the 10 Commandments. Now we have federal, state, and municipal lawmakers that won't stop creating new laws. Laws that might impact you without you knowing it. Listen to the show and drop a line on Facebook or email host@talklawradio.com and let the host know what you think of the show, the topics you want to hear, and whether you want to be a guest.